Hello, and welcome to the Twilight Pwn, the internet's third most popular Twilight Zone podcast. If you're listening to this episode, you've probably recently heard about us. Maybe you had the instinct, this sounds interesting, I'll just start with the first episode they did, give it a whirl, see how I like it. Fred, my co-host, what do you think about that?
That would be a bad idea.
This little introduction is just to kind of gently push you in a different direction.
It's always good to start a podcast by apologizing for it. But yes, we started this podcast 3 years ago. We didn't exactly know what we were doing, so we just hope you won't get discouraged by the slightly subpar quality of our very early episodes. So maybe a better strategy is just choose your favorite episode of the Twilight Zone and jump right to that episode of our podcast. Right. It doesn't really matter. As long as it's not one for the angels, basically.
Right. Yeah, we attacked them in kind of a slapdash listener-requested order. It took us a little while to get our feet underneath us, so hopefully you'll appreciate that, and eventually you can circle back to this classic chestnut from the first day when we were figuring out how to work a microphone.
Yeah. So main takeaways: we apologize for the podcast you're about to listen to, but hope you enjoy our take on One for the Angels.
Thanks.
So I've always had quite a fondness for children,
Yes, that's all here in the record. Problem here, Mr. Bookman, is that you'd require a delay until
Until I make a pitch. The kind of pitch I was talking to you about there.
One for the Angels, you mean?
That's right. One for the angel.
Welcome to the Twilight Pwn, the podcast that discusses each and every episode of the Twilight Zone. My name is John, and I'm here with my co-host Fred.
Hey.
For our first podcast, we're going to watch the second episode of The Twilight Zone. This one is entitled One for the Angels. It was originally broadcast on October 9th, 1959. We'll start these out by, who could give the best introduction to the show? None other than the man, Rod Serling, so we'll play his intro.
Street scene. Summer. The present. Man on a sidewalk named Lou Bookman, age 60-ish. Occupation, Pitchman. Lou Bookman, a fixture of the summer, a rather minor component to a hot July, a nondescript, commonplace little man whose life is a treadmill built out of sidewalks. And in just a moment, Lou Bookman will have to concern himself with survival. Because as of 3 o'clock this hot July afternoon, he'll be stalked by Mr. Death.
All right. So that gives you a basic idea. We're going to try a little segment where we each give our own Serling introduction to this particular show. So, Fred, would you like to go first, or should I?
Yeah, I'll start it off with my best Serling, which is not very good. Witness one Louis Bookman, pitchman and part-time pedophile. His pathetic existence is punctuated by the occasional sale of a plastic robot toy. Quite simply, the man is a loser. However, Mr. Bookman is about to receive redemption in the form of a bureaucratic error made by the Angel of Death in the Twilight Zone.
All right. See, that's very good. All right. Here's my try. I don't think I did as good. Street scene. Summer. The present. Man on a rather obvious set. Lou Bookman, occupation pitchman, a.k.a. infomercial of the 1950s. Lou is a rather nondescript man, a boring, one-note, unimportant dust mote of a man whose life is a footnote in a really boring person's unused day planner. In just a moment, Mr. Bookman will be forced to do the one thing that he appears to be supremely unqualified in any possible way to do, attempt to sell one of his products.
Good old Lou Bookman. Just to briefly recount the plot of the episode, we start with Lou Bookman. He's a salesman on the street. We see that he's being observed by Mr. Death. Death follows him back to his apartment and lets Bookman know that he's at midnight tonight, he's going to come and kill him. Bookman sort of pleads his case, and Death sort of grants him an extension on dying if Bookman will, because Bookman wants to do this thing, which is give a pitch for the Angels. He wants to, it's sort of unclear what that exactly is, but sort of make one big sell.
Sure.
And so, unfortunately, Death, because he's granted Bookman this extension, has to kill somebody else, and he sort of cruelly kills a 5-year-old girl who lives in Bookman's apartment. by
well,
getting
in
her
his
into
apartment building.
right, his
hopefully.
apartment building, yeah, by getting her into an automobile accident. And she gets hit by a car. She's very sick. She's going to die at midnight tonight if Bookman can't stop it. So the Angel of Death comes back and is trying to get into the apartment building, but Bookman has set up his little stand to sell things and succeeds in distracting the Angel of Death by selling him a nylon tie at the very end of the episode. Therefore, the little girl's life is saved, but Bookman, of course, because he's fulfilled the deal he made with death, does die, and they sort of go arm in arm off to heaven.
Yeah, I think that covers it pretty well.
Yeah. I love the clip that you played at the very beginning where it talked about like how his weird history with children or something like that.
Right.
And the Angel of Death is like, oh, that's well documented.
Yeah,
there's a lot of very subtle like pedophile references in the episode.
No, it is a pretty sweet one overall, and some of the episodes go for horror or sci-fi. This one is kind of in that sentimental vein. It's not. I don't think even then it was meant to be scary at all.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that it's like the second episode of the Twilight Zone because, I mean, to my understanding from the very beginning, they were going for that supernatural element and sort of for it to be creepy and weird or, at least shocking on some level. And
right.
Like the second episode of the Twilight Zone is just like a salesman, Can a salesman sell a toy? There's a lot to like and a lot to dislike in a weird way. Like, I thought the opening is kind of funny. It opens up with that shot of the robot, which is kind of cool and clever. You know what I mean? How they open up on that close-up of that robot toy, which immediately sort of makes you think science fiction, and then it pulls out and you see that it's like this, normal modern day at the time tableau. I thought that was kind of cool.
Do you think they meant it on kind of a deeper level? Like, I get the impression watching this that it's already kind of Bookman is a relic. He's already kind of a nostalgic thing. Do you think that was supposed to be a bit of a juxtaposition of the like fading icon of the Summer Street, the Pitchman, selling this very modern toy, or do you think it was just a chance to throw in a Lost in Space reference?
Yeah, I don't know, probably more of the latter. I don't know. It's hard to. It's funny because like when something is old, like the Twilight Zone is, it just all has this veneer of being old timey. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's hard to like actually know what's a nostalgic reference within that world.
Right.
It is funny how he constantly refers to like this supposed occupation of pitchman.
Right.
I just feel like that's a career that has largely died out. That's not like, there's no like Cornell school of pitching or like. I also like the supreme randomness of the stuff that he sells. Like I made this little list of stuff. It's like robot toys, binoculars, calamine lotion, collar stays, ties, and thread are the things that he sells.
Well, I'm sure he's probably got like a book if you want to order other stuff. You have to wait for like a week. But when he meets with Mr. Death, he goes to his apartment, like you said, and Mr. Death is there. He kind of surprises him by suddenly, appearing, sitting in a room or in a chair in his room. Yeah. Death tells him there's 3 exceptions, 3 ways around it, which there's the hardship case, for people who have to leave their family behind.
Right.
Which
those people never die.
Yeah, that seemed, could be a rather broad exception if applied strictly. Then there's the priority case, which basically sounded like it was for rich people. And then finally, unfinished business.
Right. That's
which
like
is
the classic, way to get out of dying.
Right. And I have this clip that just shows you, kind of gives you an idea of how good a pitchman Lou Bookman is. God, how good he is at thinking on his feet when presented with the idea of unfinished business.
Yeah.
You don't have any unfinished business, do you, Mr. Bookman?
Ah, but I do. Indeed, I do. That's it. You see, I have some unfinished business.
Yes, very convincing. Business, Starts looking around the room for any unfinished. Well, yes.
These plates aren't washed. Do you have the rest of the clip there, or?
No.
Well, the examples that he gives is he sees a toy helicopter on his table.
Sure.
And he's like, I've never flown in a helicopter. And then Mr. Death sort of throws that one out, and then the next one is, I've never seen a Zulu war dance.
Yeah, which, it's like, is it racist or no? He's just old. I think that's okay.
Yeah, I
cute.
definitely analyzed that one for race. I couldn't find any, even a hint there.
No,
but,
I think it was clean. It checked out.
Checked out clean. Right. I also love how, like, easily Death gives in to this. It's sort of like the pouty face that he puts on when he says he's never made a pitch for the Angels. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
actually,
is there another clip here? Or?
Well, yeah, I have the clip here of what I like to call Lou making the pitch to be able to give the pitch for the pitch. So here we are. Here we go.
Between you and me, I never made a truly big pitch. I mean a big pitch. A pitch big enough for the skies to open up. A pitch for the Angels. Of course, that wouldn't mean very much to you, but it mean a great deal to me. It would mean that for one moment in my whole life, I would have done something successful. It would mean that maybe the children would be very proud of me.
The children?
Yes. I've always had quite a fondness for children,
Yep.
Yes, that's all here in the record.
It's all here on your rap sheet, Mr. Bookman.
Yeah, you do detect a little bit of uncomfortableness from Mr. Death with that. Yes, that's all here in the record. We know.
Yeah, we'll overlook it in this case. Yeah.
He does make this pitch for the pitch. Mr. Death kind of says, no, that's not really a thing. And then Lou just starts pouting in the corner, and Death immediately is like, oh, okay, I guess.
Like, you'd think the Angel of Death would have, like, been through this a couple times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it would take a little more than, like, a pouty face, from a doughy older man to, like, get him to give up the concept of mortality, but...
Mr. Death basically appears in 3 different parts of the room.
Yeah.
And to give you a good idea, this room is probably all of about 10 feet by 15 feet.
Yeah.
And he moves.
I love the constant, whenever Death teleports, the actor who plays Lou Bookman is so bewildered by where the voice is coming from next.
Yeah.
It's a room that's like no bigger than a college dorm. And when Death like teleports to behind him, his first reaction is to look up. He looks up at the ceiling.
He literally, at one point after Mr. Death teleports, I think the second time, his first instinct is to look out the window instead of to the other side of the room.
I know.
And then he comes up with this gem.
Now you look here. I've lived in this room for 21 years. And you keep popping up in corners of the room that I've never even seen before. Would you please stay in one place?
What does that mean? I didn't get that. Is that like, is Death creating parts of the apartment somehow? Is that like some weird power of Death to like create extensions to a shitty sublet? I mean,
I don't know. And it's just, how could he have lived in that tiny room for 10 years and not
21.
noticed that other chair? 21 years. 21 years, and it's like, oh, that chair that's 3 feet away from the other chair. You had never noticed that corner?
I think Death brings his own props, basically. Yeah. The little girl's kind of a funny character, too. I don't know if you noticed this. I made a clip out of it. I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear it, but
okay.
It's the way that she constantly refers to him by saying his name. Did you notice that?
No, go ahead.
She always says Lou after she says anything to him. I made a clip out of it. Hold on.
What are you selling today, Lou? Toys, Lou? You're selling toys? Thanks, Lou. Sticky spent, Lou. I think I got it now, Lou. Why not what, Lou? See who, Lou? It works great now, Lou. Goodbye, Lou. Thanks a lot. See you after supper, Lou.
She just literally says Lou after every... Like in some of the sentences, she's like, "What's up, Lou? How's it going, Lou? What are you doing, Lou?" It's like someone trying to like annoy someone.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of a needling aspect to that.
Yeah,
maybe Lou owes her money or something.
Yeah.
But
Death is like such a not a bad character, but like a weirdly inconsistent character. You know what I mean? He like comes in and he's sort of exasperated at all of humanity, and then he's like a huge sucker, and then all of a sudden he's really cool and aloof again. You know, it just goes back. You know, he goes from like, oh, you made a pouty face? Okay, you can live. To like, well, I have to kill a girl now. Like, you know, he's really hot and cold, basically, is what I'm getting at.
Right. Yeah. Well, and at the bottom of the stairwell, Lou Bookman reads him what for.
FYI. that means for your information.
Kind of neat to know that that was an expression, in 1959.
Yeah, I like that, actually. It was kind of a nice little sort of linguistic detail. Maybe that was just not common enough at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They had to explain it.
It was also fascinating. I didn't get the clip, though, but when Mr. Death replied, LOL, hashtag, gonna kill you anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. You think these things are like, brand new, but they've been around.
They go back.
Girl immediately hit by the car.
Yeah,
which I did. Did you notice that she'd been run over by a car? Lou runs over to her, and she has
props her neck up or something.
Immediately grabs her, shakes her a little bit. No blood, no bruise of any kind. The only effect of the car accident seems to be that she's slightly tired.
Yeah. Basically, my impression of that accident, it was that there was like some sort of like very dangerous fever germs like on the bumper of the car that hit her and immediately affected her. Like her injury is such that she doesn't have to go to a hospital, but rather they just pick her up and carry her back into the apartment. And the doctor comes and his diagnosis of her after getting hit by a car is she'll reach a crisis at midnight.
I think his actual diagnosis was, we have no way to know if she makes it past midnight, she'll be fine. Yeah. If not, she'll die.
Maybe that's what medicine was in the 50s. Maybe we hadn't figured that out. Cars were still new back then at that point.
I think the next thing that happens, Lou's sitting on the sidewalk. It's night, and Mr. Death kind of saunters up. They sit there. They chat for a bit. It's about quarter till midnight when Death is scheduled to make his pickup, of Maggie. Pretty nonchalantly, Lou Bookman takes out his case, starts setting up, and he begins what will become his pitch for the Angels.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you will feast your eyes on probably the most exciting invention since atomic energy, a simulated silk so fabulously conceived as to mystify even the ancient Chinese silk manufacturers. And what would you expect to pay for this fabulous, I say fabulous, incredible, amazing development of the tailor's art?
And at first, Death looks a little bemused by his pitch, but he slowly gets drawn in as he feels the ties and the little pieces of silk.
I offer you this fabulous thread, not at $20 a spool, not at 10, not at 5, but at the ridiculously low price of 25 cents a spool.
I'll take all you have.
Give me everything you got. It's too bad this is an audio medium, because when you see his face, it's like his hair's all out of his hair.
Yeah,
is like
he's mussed,
and
his tie is pulled. He's covered in sweat. He looks like a junkie desperate for a fix.
Yeah, I know. You know what the funniest thing about? Possibly the funniest thing about this episode is how bad Lou Bookman actually is at selling things.
Right.
Like anyone on Canal Street is better at selling shit than he is. So
well,
that's
I didn't.
One thing. But that really like manifests itself really funnily at the beginning of that clip, because I don't know if you remember this, but before he even launches into that really bad pitch,
absolutely.
He sort of like blows it at the offset. He's like, will you take a look at this tie? And he reaches into his suitcase, and instead of pulling out a tie, he pulls out a robot toy.
Yes, and he displays it. Yeah, he displays it, and then he's like, oh, wait, excuse me. And he kind of looks at the robot and laughs. And it's like,
if you don't even have a sense of like the basic physical structure of your inventory, and you're confusing a tie for a robot toy.
Which, leads into the discussion. Do you think Death was in on it?
Yeah, that's a really important question. That's really the crux of this whole episode.
Right.
I have to say that I was going to say that one of the most hilarious things about the episode is how bad of a salesman he is. Possibly the next most hilarious thing is how Death reacts to this sales pitch. He like really goes all in. He's just really, he's more captivated than any person has ever been captivated by buying anything on Earth. Like Black Friday sales are like nothing compared to his reaction to this tie. And the Angel of Death, does he even have money? Does he have, where would he keep it boggles the mind. So in my mind, I really go back and forth. I wasn't sure, because it seems to be like, it seems that he is playing along with Mr. Bookman. He's kind of like conning him a little bit and sort of gently taking him off into heaven and letting him have his last pitch for the Angels. But his captivation by the sales pitch is so good. It almost
undermines. Well, I agree. And also it's been established earlier in the episode very clearly that Death can pop in wherever he wants to go, whenever he needs to.
Exactly.
And so it's already a bit of a contrivance that Death wanders up to the staircase,
I know.
Because he's got a quarter of an hour to kill.
I know.
And so he's just going to hang with Bookman.
I know. He just hangs, which he almost pops out a cigarette. It's like that kind of feeling.
You can either read it as Death was totally conned and, and Lou was able to save the girl and that's sweet. Or you can read it as a little deeper as Death was in on it the whole time.
Yeah.
And he knew by going after the girl and he knew that would be the thing that would be able to force Bookman to give this pitch for the Angels. Death maybe knew it was not very good, but for Bookman it was the best he'd ever done, and that was good enough for Bookman.
No, I mean, that definitely makes the episode better, for sure. There's no question in my mind that would be a better episode of the Twilight Zone. Death's reactions are just so extreme. Like, there's no hint of when he's reacting to this sales pitch. He's just so... He has the ability to make himself sweat and just get so involved into it. I mean, maybe he's like an actor on the side or something, but like he's just so captivated by this.
Well, there is a shot when Lou starts the pitch. There's a shot of Death, and he kind of smiles to himself, and he looks pretty pleased, like to see Lou start.
Yeah, but you could just as easily read that shot as, oh, that Lou up to his tricks again.
Death didn't seem upset. He kind of faked like, oh no, I've lost. It's past midnight. This can't happen. But he gets over it immediately because he's got Bookman.
Yeah. Death is just very indulgent of the weird desires of old people, basically.
Right.
Death is just will go to any length. The Angel of Death will go to any length to give you whatever sad little banal wish you have before you die. And going so far as to seriously threaten the life of a little girl.
Right. At the very end, after Lou's made the pitch and he's going, Lou does ask Mr. Death, oh, I guess I'm going up there, confirm that he gets to go to heaven. And Death assures him, yes, he's going up there.
Yeah.
Which kind of stealing St. Peter's thunder a little bit. Kind of spoiler alert.
Yeah.
A little unfair.
That's actually true. St. Peter's really pissed about it, actually.
That's really not the Angel of Death's jurisdiction at all. He's a collections man. For all the bureaucracy they've shown in the afterlife, that seems like a bit of a mistake on his part.
Yeah, exactly,
overreach.
Right. Just to tell him he's going to heaven without making him sign a form or anything.
Right. I guess this episode was a little unique in, most Twilight Zone episodes have a twist to them.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about this. I would say the actual twist of the episode kind of was at the midpoint, not really the end. I would think that the actual twist is he cheats Death, and then Death immediately takes Maggie instead of him to kind of force his hand.
It's a fascinating hypothesis from my colleague in the field of Twilight Zone analysis. I would have to disagree. I mean, I think the twist is supposed to essentially be, I mean, even though you see it coming from 1,000 miles away, the twist is that he makes his, is that he prevents the girl from dying, and in a neat little twist,
so doing,
so to speak, fulfills his own stupid fantasy and goes to heaven
right.
himself. I mean, I just don't think you can, I just think that is, in as much as there is a twist to this episode, which I would argue there barely is, that is the twist.
Right. As soon as it becomes Maggie, the rest of the episode is pretty much inevitable.
Yeah, no, totally.
So, you have another 10 to 15 minutes of show where it's pretty clear what's going to happen. There's not another kind of reversal, except for...
I mean, we talked about, like, rating the twist, and if I had to rate this twist, I would say, 1 out of 10, because it's not very good. There's several episodes of The Twilight Zone that are more comic or more sentimental, and, it's kind of unfair to rate the twist on the same way that you'd rate the twist for, To Serve Man or something, which is supposed to be, pulling the rug out from underneath you. So I mean, I was thinking maybe it would be like the most implausible thing is just the angel of death getting sucked in by this pitch, because it's just so ridiculous. So I was thinking maybe if Bookman had done something like drawn a crowd which prevented the angel of death from getting in time, that would have been a maybe slightly more plausible thing. But as we've already discussed, he's able to teleport. So it would have, this episode has pretty much had to be the way it was, once it got set up.
Well, I think that segues pretty well to a little bit of trivia. I was reading in the Twilight Zone companion to get a little bit of reference for this, and
we all have a copy.
Yes, of course.
Keep mine between my dictionary and my Bible.
Apparently, this story was originally written by Rod Serling in a different form, and it involved
as a dinner toast, as a very long dinner toast.
No, I think it was a TV
Facebook
episode
comment.
Still.
Sorry, go on.
Still involved a sidewalk pitchman, but in this one, he's trying to save his brother from a group of hitmen, but by the way he's able to save him is by giving a pitch so good that the brother and the pitchman are always surrounded by a crowd, so that the hitmen aren't able to take him out.
That makes so much more sense to me. I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I think that just as a plot just makes more sense. But maybe there's no like Twilight; it's not as supernatural or something. It's interesting to me because in a weird way, the episode I can really see that, because the episode would make a lot more sense if the person was not a pitchman. You know what I mean? If the person had some other skill and some other weird lifelong goal that they had to do in order to prevent the death of some small child. Because First of all, I don't think people who sell shit on the street like dream of some big sale. You know what I mean?
Right, the big score that they can retire on. I'm going to sell all my robot shit and thread today.
Yeah, exactly. First of all, that's not the life goal of people who are they don't end up there because they're exercising a skill that they love.
Whoa,
and second of all,
you're getting into a kind of rough area. You're kind of.
So okay, maybe that's
kind of denigrating all pitchmen.
I know. I could be class warfare, but
you're basically like Rod Serling. You're like, pitchmen have all given up. They're worthless, pathetic little people with no hopes or dreams.
Yeah, God, Serling had a real love-hate relationship with Pitchman. he was originally the Twilight Zone was called the Pitchman Zone, and every episode featured a pitch-based twist. To Pitchman is a cookbook.
This might segue a bit into just talking about the actors in general, but Edwin, who plays Lou Bookman, for all his many skills, being
acting
a fast-talking pitchman. No, I think he's a good actor. I think, but he's not well cast as a man who could deliver a pitch for the Angels. He has a lisp. He's slow of speech.
Yeah, it's strange. Yeah, I mean, maybe was he like an iconic actor in the 50s? I have to say, I've never heard of him before this.
Indeed, his nickname was the Perfect Fool, and he was a very, very well-known comedian. I think from the 30s onward. Right. Probably best remembered as Uncle Albert in Mary Poppins. And he also provided the physical likeness and voice for the Mad Hatter in Disney's Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, yeah. I can actually kind of hear that now that I think of it. Yeah. I guess that makes
sense.
Whoa,
Fred. I got a little more.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Please, give the man his due. He had 3 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for film, radio, and television. That's pretty impressive. He also appeared in Season 5 of The Twilight Zone, episode 90 Years Without Slumbering, which I'm sure we'll get to in about 3 years from now. That's guaranteed.
No question in my mind. We'll be there. I was just saying it kind of makes more sense, and I think maybe like just having him in the episode was kind of a coup in itself or something like that,
Probably.
So maybe he wasn't really well cast, but they just had this celebrity, so they're like, let's get him in here. I actually don't think he's that good. I mean, not that he's like so bad, but he's playing it more for laughs, but he's not really getting laughs.
I think that's a pretty near constant of the Twilight Zone, though.
That's fair.
Almost any time they go for humor.
Yeah,
it's kind of a mess.
God, have you ever watched the Buster Keaton episode?
I don't know, but
it's like all
something
silence.
To look forward to.
It's brutal.
Edwin is the father of Keenan Wynn.
Oh, I know. I know exactly who Keenan Wynn is.
who appeared in the MST3K episode Laser Blast.
Yeah.
So, yeah, 1 degree of MST3K there. Very good.
The Keenan wind comes blowing. He played kind of a crazy old coot as well in that.
Yeah, a little bit darker take on it.
Tradition.
Just to run through the others, Murray Hamilton played Mr. Death. He's probably most famous for his roles as the mayor in Jaws and as Mr. Robinson in The Graduate. And he is. Yeah. And he didn't appear in any other Twilight episodes, but he was in an episode of Rod Serling's other series, Night Gallery.
Oh yeah, right, Ilford Night Gallery.
Yes.
He was good. I thought he
was solid.
It was not like
except
not
for
the
the
Angels, but he did a good job.
Then
one moment we didn't even cover with the clip is, remember at the very end of his pitch, Bookman is like, says something like, and his like the pièce de résistance of his pitch is he's like, you not only get all that, but you also get me as your servant or something. Do you remember that?
Right. Yeah.
And Mr. Death was like, what? How's that? Like he just like even Death, who's maybe putting him on or something, is kind of like, that's just too dumb. I can't react to that.
I guess actually I think that undercuts my whole theory of Death being in on it, because Bookman's one head of the game, and he's saying, I present me to you in her place, you'll get me, and Death's like, what?
Yeah.
No, huh?
Death has a really like reaction.
Yeah.
He was good. I mean, we already discussed the little girl, her
well,
performance. Aside from injecting the word Lou every other word, it was pretty good, I felt.
Yeah, Dana Dillaway, she appeared in season 3 episode I Sing the Body Electric, which I assume is based on the Ray Bradbury short story.
Yes, I know that episode well.
And finally, it was directed by Robert Parrish, who did a couple other episodes, The Mighty Casey and A Stop at Willoughby. And interestingly, he was nominated for an Oscar for editing for the movie All the King's Men, and he won an Oscar for editing for Body and Soul. So he did a little bit of both. And he retired from filmmaking and took up professional basketball, became a 9-time All-Star, and was elected to the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2003, nicknamed the Chief. It's pretty impressive. Robert Parrish.
Good. Yeah, the Chief did pretty. That's a weird second career move. Like I did direct episodes of the Twilight Zone, but now I'm going to be a pro baller. Like
I figured you wouldn't get that, but the last thing really to do is just our thoughts on the rating for the episode. IMDb currently has this episode rated at 7.6 out of 10.
So what's your rating?
Well, if we're going to do a true scale, 1 to 10, all being on the table.
Yeah.
5 being average, 1 just being abysmal, 10, one of the best ever. I don't know. I think I'd put it at like a 6 or so. Solid 6. I think it's very sentimental. It's a little, cloying in that way, but I think the story's straightforward but well told. The acting is cute. I'd give it a 6.
Yeah. I gotta be honest. I think it's like 4 for me. 3 or 4, like a low 4. I don't know if that exists, but
yeah.
But I mean,
4 minus.
I'm like a little bit victim to the thing of just liking all episodes of the Twilight Zone too. So it's hard for me to like really like it's like I'd rather watch this than many other things. But like, it's not particularly compelling on almost any level, except that it is kind of like it is sweet, but. I don't know. There's no twist. The situation isn't interesting. It's a little boring. It's well directed. It's well made. It's not like bad or schlocky. Like some of the episodes are kind of poorly made. But I just think it's I don't know. It's going in the 4. It's going 4 for me.
All right. That's fair. Okay, well, I think that'll wrap up our first episode. Next week, we'll do Mr. Denton on Doomsday.
On Doomsday.
Not Mr. Denton on Doom's Street.
I don't remember it, so I'm looking forward to that.
It's about a pitchman who is also a town drunk.
Pitchman.
Yeah. Basically, the whole first season was pitch related.
Sure. Features Burgess Meredith as a pitchman who wants nothing more.
Yeah, he just wants to do his. He just wants to pitch all by himself in peace. Yeah. And the apocalypse comes, and he no longer has his thread.
Yeah.
Wah wah.
All right.
Okay.
Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, you can email us at twilightpwn, PWN, @gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter @twilightpwn. Thanks.